Endurance Junkie Podcast, episode 35. Hey Junkie, what's up? Welcome to another episode of the Endurance Junkie Podcast, the show where I will be interviewing some of the fastest, smartest, and most inspiring people active in the endurance world today. Dr. Jim Afremow is a mental coach, a licensed professional counselor, and the author of The Champion's Mind, How Great Athletes Think, Train, and Thrive. He's the founder of Good to Gold Medal, a leading coaching and consulting practice that provides individual and team mental training services across the globe to athletes, teams, and coaches in all sports, as well as to parents, business professionals, and all others engaged in highly demanding endeavors. Jim, thanks for taking the time to chat here today. Can you start off by telling us a bit about yourself, your own sporting background, and how you ended up working as a mental coach?
Sure. Thanks, Peter. Well, I'm a sports psychology consultant and licensed professional counselor based in Phoenix, Arizona. And I grew up competing in a variety of sports, including soccer and track and field. But I'm really fascinated by human behavior and what makes people tick. So the field of sports psychology is really a natural fit for me. And in my career, I've been very fortunate to have had the opportunity to work with so many amazing athletes and teams across a wide variety of sports and all over the world.
So yeah, you don't focus only on endurance athletes. You're also involved with, I guess, Major League Baseball and NBA, NHL, that sort of sports.
Absolutely. All the major sports, baseball, basketball, football, and worked with Olympic teams around the world and Olympians in just a wide variety of sports.
Cool. And what gives you the most sense of pleasure and fulfillment as a mental coach?
Well, to be honest, I would say that there's probably nothing I don't like about doing this. It's really does boil down to all about the people I meet and the relationships I build. My philosophy is that the purpose in life is to be vitally involved in it, and doing the things that really make you feel alive. And so, again, I'm fortunate to work with people who have big goals and big dreams, and so they're motivational to me. And it's just a great opportunity to work with these people and help them to reach their own goals. Yeah,
I guess it must be really satisfying to see them actually complete these goals and achieve what they've set out to do. Focusing on endurance athletes, because this is where basically this podcast is about. So, people who do Ironman triathlons, ultra running, adventure races, people who are sometimes racing 8 hours or more or multiple days. What are some of the most common mental hurdles that you see these athletes struggle with?
Well, I think, one of the great things about endurance sports is that, at one point or another, you're going to experience every mental game challenge that's out there. But I would say that for endurance athletes, they really have to rein in the twin horses of doubt and discomfort. Competing for that long, it's just going to test your confidence and concentration and composure. So in order to own your performance, you're really going to have to own your mind. And, one of the sayings that I really like when I work with athletes and, share with them is that the body wins when the mind refuses to give in. So you really have to be in the right place mentally, especially in endurance sports.
Yeah. There's one of the taglines that I use myself in the apparel brand is it's all about mental toughness. So I guess that's what it's all about. What is your definition then of mental toughness?
Well, mental toughness to me is doing the thing that is hard over and over again and having a great attitude while doing it. And this doesn't mean that you have to be deliriously happy every moment, during training or in competition. But you really do have to stay positive and proactive when it matters most, or you least feel like performing. So ways of developing and demonstrating mental toughness include rising early in the morning to get in extra training, finishing strong during a hard workout, staying focused after making a mistake, and never letting your opponent's attitude or effort be stronger than your own.
Is that also a way to deal with, ups and downs during training? Because, obviously not every workout is going to go the way that you want it to. So use these techniques that you just mentioned to stay positive and to do these hard things over and over again so that they become like normal on race day?
That's right. Peak performance is doing your absolute best. So you want to do your best every workout. And, if you train to the max, when it's time to perform, you'll be able to compete to the max. So let's say, one day you're only at 75%, whether mentally or physically or emotionally. Make it your goal that day to get 100% out of that 75%. And, so you're always doing your best. So then when you're in the big moment, been there, done that, you don't have to do anything extra or special to perform your best because you're always performing your best. In terms of the ups and downs of during a block of training, you want to train to the edge, but you also really need to listen to your body. So if you're injured, be disciplined enough to shut it down and live to train and win another day.
Yeah. So the things that I sometimes like to do is, just train with music because it's sort of, it's a bit of a distraction. But of course, I try to leave it, or don't train with music when I have a really key workout that I want to do. Is that's a good way to approach things?
I think so. I think that to keep your motivation at a high level, it's good to mix it up a little bit in training. And so listening to your favorite music, adding some variety that way, I think can be really helpful. As long as you're checking in with your body and making sure that you're on pace and doing what you need to do to get the most out of the workout, I think it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. What about visualization? Is that a good technique to improve performance?
Yeah, I think visualization is actually one of the most powerful tools in our toolkit in order to perform our best. And, here's one quote from Greta Bites. She was the 9-time winner of the New York City Marathon. And she said, spend at least some of your training time and other parts of your day concentrating on what you are doing in training and visualizing your success. So, for example, see and feel yourself performing well in key parts of the race, such as, maybe hammering the hills or passing other competitors, and then crossing the finish line. And all this together really helps to build confidence for the race. And so make sure to include the sights and noises, smells, textures, and powerful emotions that accompany the performance. And, one of the great things about visualization is you could do it in parallel with some of the things that you're already doing throughout the day. So let's say you're waiting in line at the grocery store, or you have a little downtime after a workout. Well, spend a few moments, or a few minutes really seeing and feeling yourself accomplishing what you most want to accomplish.
I guess it makes it harder if you are competing all day. I think it's pretty easy for like a Usain Bolt to perfectly visualize his race, and Michael Phelps can do the same thing because these are all short races and short distances. But yeah, for an endurance athlete, I think it is a bit more difficult, and maybe they have to figure out these blocks that they want to focus on, say T1 or T2, and especially crossing that finish line.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you don't have to do the whole race, but key parts of the race are important. Also, while you're racing, you could use metaphorical imagery. And, so for example, you could imagine yourself or think about yourself as, a powerful tank that can't be slowed or stopped when moving forward. Also, if you're feeling a lot of discomfort and pain, you could imagine that washing behind you and leaving that in your wake.
Yeah, cool. How important is the mental aspect in talent detection? At what age should young athletes start working with a mental coach, you think?
Well, I think that teen years are an ideal time for young athletes to train their flexible minds for achieving excellence in school and sport. So, mental training tools are really fun and effective, and they're great for the teen years. So these include deep breathing that starts at your core, positive self-talk, positive body language, visualization, what we just talked about, and goal setting. So mental strength is essential, and what young athletes learn now will last them a lifetime. And we all know the earlier you learn something, the better at it you get. So I think the teen years are perfect for formal mental coaching. But young kids, my wife and I, we actually taught our daughter deep breathing at age 1. And when she had she would have a little mini temper tantrum, we would model deep breathing for her, and then she would mimic that and then become more relaxed as a result. So we could all benefit from these pretty much at any age.
That's a good tip. Definitely going to use that with my 3-year-old because he gets these tantrums from time to time as well.
Good luck and let me know how it goes.
Yeah, definitely will do. I guess it is indeed important to start at a young age. Looking at myself, I was playing tennis at a young age and playing soccer and doing some swimming here and there, but I had some sort of talent there, but my head wasn't really screwed on right. So for me, it was just about playing tennis, and it never was really competitive. So if at that age you can be guided by a mental coach, that can definitely help improvement at a young age, and maybe take sports a bit more seriously and get it to a higher level at a younger age.
Yeah, I would add to that it's about definitely helping to play the sport better, but also enjoying it to the max. And so mental skills and strategies are really life skills and strategies. So a lot of young athletes that I work with tell me that they're more confident in the classroom as much as on the court. So that's what's really neat about how these mental skills and strategies can translate on and off the field.
Yeah. Okay. What are your tips on dealing with pre-race day nerves?
Well, number one, I would say that to keep in mind and, to really understand that that's how your body readies itself to perform at its peak. So if you know this, it helps to normalize it. There's no way that you can physically perform at your best level without a moderate amount of physical arousal. So a lot of athletes say, help me get rid of this feeling. And, number one, you can't. Number two, you don't want to. Imagine trying to compete your best if your heart rate is at resting. So, so number one is to recognize they're normal and healthy, and recognize them, again, for what they are without shame. That's how humans are made. National Hockey League hockey star Sidney Crosby said, "I don't think you're human if you don't get nervous." So, everyone's going to get nervous. It's more about how you funnel it into your performance. So athletes, right before the performance, the key is, focus on the controllables before competition, such as your race plan, but you don't really want to overthink or think too much about the race itself. Otherwise, you'll have run the race before the race has even begun and used up valuable energy in the process. So, what I would say to an athlete is, remember, the hay is in the barn. You're ready and prepared for this event. So go out there and enjoy this challenge and do your best.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, I definitely heard of some people that have been struggling so much with these pre-race nerves that at a certain point they just stop competing because they don't really like that feeling of nerves before the race.
Yeah, it's important to realize that they're just feelings. It doesn't mean that something's wrong with you or something bad's going to happen. And think of them more as energy. And so instead of saying I'm so nervous, tell yourself I'm so excited, and then just focus on what you need to do to compete your very best.
All right. You got any tips on dealing with bad patches during your race? I mean, if you're racing Ironman, there's definitely 4 or 5 times that you're going to ask yourself, what the hell am I doing here?
Yeah, in probably any Ironman event, in the middle of it, you're going to probably feel like it's going to be a failure because it's going to hurt. It's adversity is going to strike. So I think importantly, forewarned is forearmed. So as you indicated, anticipate that you're going to face adversity during any endurance event, and so that you're not surprised when it happens. Bad patches are not permanent. They'll pass. Let's be honest. It's going to hurt. It's going to hurt to be a champion. It's going to hurt to do your very best. So know that feeling good and happy all the time is overvalued. You really want to welcome the pain and work with it rather than getting all psyched out. Just keep grinding it out stride by stride or mile by mile. And if you're struggling, decide that you're going to be the best struggler out there. So continue to check in periodically with your body and make appropriate adjustments to prevent hitting the wall, and make sure to keep your thoughts positive and powerful. Like you could say to yourself, my legs are on fire. This burn is awesome.
Is that what separates the men from the boys in pro sports? Because I think it's fair to say that at that level, they are physically very, very close to each other.
Well, here's a great quote from Novak Djokovic, the world's #1 tennis player. He said, "Tennis is a mental game. Everyone is fit. Everyone hits great forehands and backhands." So I agree. In sports and life, it all boils down to the mental game. And what I would say is, in terms of what separates the best from the rest, is that champions think gold and they never settle for silver or bronze. And what I mean by that is they're constantly chasing their own tail to reach their total potential. They're not going to leave any area of their game to chance or circumstance. So they're constantly fine-tuning their mindset, nutrition, technique, and tactics. And even when they're not feeling motivated, they lean on their commitment, so they never let up or give up.
And how can they? How do they deal with failure? Because how can failure make them stronger?
Well, failure is something that is part of the dance. We're all gonna fail at times, but we can learn more from our failures than our successes. And the reason for this is because failure brings to light what went wrong, whether in terms of the race plan or maybe our mental or physical prep. So the key is to grab the positive corrections afterward and then throw out all the rest. And, by doing this, you'll be able to retool and return to competition even better prepared. So what you're really doing here is you're thinking of competition and your involvement in sport more in terms of winning and learning rather than winning or losing. And so the key question is, after a race, after you have time to debrief and reflect on your performance, is to ask yourself, what did I learn that will help me to succeed the next time around? And so make sure to also celebrate what you did well and hold your head up high for giving it your best shot, And then if you didn't do your best, if you think you failed, then now's an opportunity to start writing your own comeback story.
Okay, cool. How about recovery? Because I wrote a blog post a couple of months ago saying that based on a recent study at the American College of Sports Medicine that showed that using the mind for recovery can be as or even more beneficial than the ice baths that a lot of runners and triathletes use. How can the mind help with recovery?
Well, I completely agree with that. I see too many athletes burning the candles. The candle at both ends, and they're not getting enough recovery, active recovery. And so athletes really need to be brilliant at relaxing the body before and after maxing the body, in training and competition, and especially to recharge the muscle that works the hardest, the brain. So meditation, deep breathing, power naps, and progressive muscle relaxation are excellent methods for calming the mind and relaxing the body. It's also important to have an occasional rest day that has no purpose or goal other than letting your body rest and rejuvenate.
That's a difficult one for a lot of people.
Yeah, it's a difficult one, but it's an important one. And, a lot of times athletes will say, performers will say, I don't have the time. And my response is, you're worth the time. You need to make sure to rest your body before and after you test your body.
All right, cool. Now, you recently published your book called The Champion's Mind, How Great Athletes Think, Train, and Thrive. I guess it's full of useful tips that people can use to enhance their performance.
Yeah, I wanted to write a book that just provided scores of practical tactics, tools, and tips for how we can all learn to think, train, and thrive like a champion in our own sport and life. And, as we've been talking about, the main difference between one's worst and one's best performances always hinges on mental performance. So, I would encourage all listeners to really start working hard and smarter on their mental game to be their absolute best. And why settle for your silver self, when you could go for your gold self? So, in order to be your best self, you really need to make sure your head is in the right place.
Yeah, cool. I guess people can get it at all the usual outlets.
Yeah, it's on Amazon and Barnes and Noble, and pretty much in all the major bookstores. So you can get it online or pick it up at the local bookstore.
Awesome. How can people get in touch with you, Jim?
Well, I would encourage listeners to check out my website at www.goldmedalmind.net. And Gold Medal Mind is synonymous with the champion's mind. And we could also follow each other on Twitter. I'm at Gold Medal Mind, and also on LinkedIn.
All right, cool. I'll definitely make sure to put those links in the show notes. Besides the book, anything else you want to plug?
Well, I do work. I'm based in Phoenix, Arizona, but I do work with athletes and coaches all over the world using Skype. So if I can be a resource or assistance to any of the listeners, let me know. I'd love to help.
All right, cool. All right, thanks for your time, Jim. I think this has been really useful for our listeners, and I hope that some of them pick up your book and find some value in that.
Thanks so much, Peter.
Bye, Jim.
Bye now.